Warning: the following contains explicit language and subject matter that may not be suitable for younger listeners, church folk, and people who enjoy kale smoothies.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to A Pod Amongst Men. I'm your host, Steve B., and this is Coffee Break Conversations for the 21st Century. So, my guests this week are Talent and Danny. They're the two hosts of mentalk.tv on Instagram. They have a series going right now, and it is, it's a very similar lane than what we have here at A Pod Amongst Men. It's about men bettering themselves and finding ways to get their life in order, find positivity and practice appreciation and gratitude every day. And they're really, really good, solid dudes, man. I really enjoy talking to them. And so this is my conversation with Talent and Danny.
Sure. No worries.
But again, biggest thing, thank you very much for agreeing to do this and for taking your Saturday, your weekend to chat with my Yankee ass.
No problem, man.
No worries, man. It's all good. All good.
All right. So, if you guys don't mind, would you take turns introducing yourself to the listeners?
Yeah. Tal, you want to take it away or shall I go, man?
Go on, you can go, mate.
Yeah. So, we run a page called Men Talk TV. We're based in the UK, just outside of London. And yeah, we've been going now for coming on to 7 weeks, and it's out about 7 weeks.
7 weeks. Yep. So
yeah,
baby stages.
Yeah, so we're kind of like new kids on the block, but we're sort of learning every single day on it and like getting to know more people. And basically, what we do is we get guys on who have like an inspiring story where they've maybe come from a place of that's like not so good, really, like in terms of like their mental health or sometimes even like suicide, things like that, and really extreme situations. And basically, they've changed it around. So it's kind of really understanding their mindsets, how they changed it around, and just sharing it with the community so that everyone can kind of gain an insight into different situations and really, try and take some value from it. That's kind of like what we do, isn't it, Tal? Obviously, there's more to it, mate.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Talent, and I'm one half of the team, and obviously that's Danny. So we grew up in the same area, pretty much. And yeah, we're just young kids, like young guys, and we just thought, create a platform where other men could just be inspired by other men to have a conversation about mental health. Because I don't know about over in the States, but definitely in the UK, it's a bit of a taboo to talk about mental health and everything like that. So especially amongst men.
Oh, we're definitely pros at brushing that stuff under the rug.
Yeah,
we learn from you guys. We learn from the best.
Yeah. So we just wanted to create a platform where people could just talk and be inspired, but not just talk about the negative side of things and talk about the negative stories. I want to put a positive spin on it, a fresh spin on the mental health conversation, like a young, fresh spin on the conversation, and actually make people want to have a conversation about their mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
Because everyone goes through it. Everyone goes through it.
Absolutely.
Everyone gets anxious, whether it's on one end of the scale where it's just, I don't know, posting a picture on Instagram and getting a bit nervous about, who's going to like it, whether it's going to, do you know what I mean? Or on the other end of the scale where, people literally won't go outside their house, and, the extreme cases like suicide. So everyone goes through it. We just want to open that channel of communication and allow men to be inspired and offer actionable solutions to how they can change their mind daily, so that they can have less of those sort of episodes or things like that,
Yeah, well, that's a big one. Like you said, actionable solutions. Like, what can people do about these things in real life? I mean, for me, with this show, it's kind of the same idea where we want to create a space where guys feel safe and feel comfortable just kind of talking about what's really going on and being vulnerable, letting the walls down. And at the same time, it's not like a pity party. You know, we're not just all feeling bad for one another. We can even laugh about these things, because sometimes you need to laugh in the face of pain, in the face of the horrible things that have happened to people in their life. Sometimes that's the best defense against it. So it's kind of like that we're letting it all out. We're letting that, it's kind of like that therapy. We could just tell stories about what happened to us, you know, about the way we grew up, about the terrible shit that our parents did, you know, or if they were great parents, we could talk about that too. I don't want to limit that.
Yeah.
So, how did you guys grow up? Like, you said you're from outside of London. Like, you guys want to give me a little bit about like what it was like, your childhood? I mean, kind of like how you came, where you come from, really. What makes you you?
Yeah. To be honest, like, it's not like, in like my case anyway, it's not like I've come from this like really troubled background and had loads of problems going on, so that's why I set up the page. In fact, it's the opposite. I feel like I was always in a privileged position, and I always had you know, my family around me, supporting my dreams and what I wanted to achieve, and I always had that. But I had friends around me who maybe didn't have that support and maybe went down wrong paths. And it's kind of like, you know, I just want to be able to provide different information for people so that they can really understand that you do have that option, and that there are people out there who you can actually talk to about different issues, and you don't have to keep it all sort of locked up inside. And, you know, even if it's not like close family members, for example, which I had the privilege of having, even if it's not those, you still got your friends and people in the same community, even local community, who would be willing to talk. So it's kind of really getting that message out there. So yeah, I mean, like I say, going back to what you said, my childhood was great, to be honest. I had a really great family. I've always been into sports, and I've always been into like competition and things like of that nature.
Are you footballer?
Yes, not the the US footballer, soccer player, right?
Don't worry, I'm adjusting my approach here to make sure it translates well. You know, I'm not talking about soccer.
Yeah. So I've always played that from a young age. Literally, I was in academies from the age of 12 all the way up to 16. Then I played sort of semi-professional level. And then just delved into like the working world, to be honest. Obviously it didn't work out in the end, like going fully on professional. So it was kind of like finding my path and what I wanted to look towards next. And I've always been sort of entrepreneurial minded, I would say. And I've always wanted to create my own path for myself. And I guess throughout my life, that's what I've sort of looked to do through, like, you know, whether that be sort of failed businesses in the past, working dead-end jobs that I hated and had to leave. You know, that's always been my path and the way I've sort of grew up throughout my life, really.
All right. What about you, Tal?
Yeah.
So I come from a country called Zimbabwe, right?
Okay.
And we moved to the UK when I was like 3 or 4. So I pretty much grew up in England for like most of my life, right? And then just grew up just plodding along, you know, as a normal kid. And then obviously with African parents and everything like that, which is you know, an experience, but plodding along with family. And then
were you born in Zimbabwe or born in the UK?
Yeah, I was born in Zimbabwe.
Okay. Well, how old were you when you came over?
3. I was about 3 or 4 years old. So, like I said, I've always known UK as sort of my home, but obviously Zimbabwe is obviously home as well. But everything was really just, you know, quite cool. Like just grew up loving football, very similar to Danny, but obviously not as high a level. I just played like sort of like it was like a semi-pro level for a club called Chelmsford. But I love football, but I realised very soon that I wasn't going to be a footballer. I actually got offered a scholarship while I was at school to go to America.
Really?
To play football. But I had to complete college, went to college, and it weren't for me.
Don't worry, me neither.
And then I come out of college just not knowing what I wanted to do, because everything I thought is I'm going to go to America, play football there, be a student athlete, and just realised very quickly it wasn't for me. And then I just thought, what else do I want to do? Okay, I want to be rich.
Good choice. I think it's a good path.
Yeah, so I thought to myself, how am I going to get there? How am I going to be successful? And then I thought, okay, sales. Let me learn how to sell. Luckily, I ran into one of my friends, started working, but then quickly realised that it's not what I want to do, and started working for myself after a while. And here I am today.
I gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, I guess I kind of have a similar story myself. I grew up relatively normal in the suburbs outside in New Jersey, about less than an hour from New York City. And my parents, they split up when I was 3, so I kind of went back and forth between my mom and my dad. And I think that was something that shaped me. Are you guys both have your parents are still together?
No. My parents split up when I was about 13, I believe.
Okay. See, I think that's a tougher age, because you're already old enough to understand what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, for me with that, I mean, it didn't really affect me that much, because my parents they kept I don't know, it was clever the way they did it. So I would see my dad every single week, no matter what. And obviously I was living with my mum and my sister. But then when I was old enough, I decided to move out and live with my dad. So that's how my situation was with that. But it never really affected me. I feel like it might have affected my sister a little bit more, but never on my side. I
think that might just be a testament to your parents being mature and handling it the right way. I think that's a sign that they did the right thing. Because if you were sitting here saying, it was the worst part of my life, then clearly they were probably fucking up.
I think as well, Dan, Danny's dad's amazing, man. He's always supported us in everything we do, innit, Dan? Yeah. He's amazing. He's my best mate. So, he's always there for me, no matter what. I've been, I said before, such a privileged position to be in, because a lot of people don't have that. I've got that support network, so I'm grateful for that every day.
How old are you guys? I forgot to ask earlier.
I'm 24.
24.
I'm 30 now.
Okay. I mean, I'm 35 now. So you guys aren't married? You have no kids and stuff?
No, nothing like that.
You guys are still living the life.
No chance.
I'm in the position now. I basically am living for someone else, for my son. So,
okay.
And my wife. I can't leave her out of it. I got to make sure she's getting the attention and the love she needs.
Yeah, of course. You'll be in the doghouse, mate. How old's your son?
My son is 9. So he's technically my stepson. But I just call him my son, because I want to make sure that he gets all the love and support he needs. I don't want him to feel like that's just my stepdad. That's the guy, banging my mom. I want him to feel like that's my dad. That's someone who's actually there and gives a shit about me. So that's a big thing I always talk about on the show. But we're gonna end up kind of skipping past a lot of that stuff today.
Yeah.
So
I think
one thing. Go ahead.
Go on. One thing I would say, obviously, I know I'm not a parent, but growing up the way I did, just to I obviously my parents were there when obviously I was young, but I don't have a great relationship with them. With my dad, he was there but not actually there. Do you know what I mean? So
kind of like a supporter and not so much the
not to be honest, not even that,
or a provider.
Not even that. You could say that.
Even that might be a little generous.
So the difficult thing I sort of grasp getting my head around is where I come from. I have there's a lineal thing with the male firstborns in the family from the ancestors that we have, and obviously I was given my father's name. He has his and it's the same and the same. So obviously I didn't have any other brothers, so there's a lot of pressure on me to be this guy and everything like that. But
you got to carry on the legacy.
But it's difficult when I think when I was younger, I wanted to have a relationship with my dad, but we didn't have one. There's nothing like, I don't really know him personally. You know, I don't know anything about him. He doesn't know anything about me. And I feel like I found that difficult to sort of comprehend when I was growing up, you know, because he was a great guy. Don't get it twisted. He's a really, really good guy. He's one of the smartest people I know, but it's like not having that time for me, but he has time for everyone else, and everyone else sees as a good guy, but I don't. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what I would say is, just as a piece of advice to anyone or any fathers out there, just make sure you give your son as much love and as attention as possible, you know, and proper get to know him and be their best friend. Like, when I see Dan, the way Dan is with his dad, it's great. Like, I love seeing that, you know. But yeah, just that piece of advice, man.
It's good advice. I mean, and that's a beautiful thing too, to be able to have that relationship with your dad, Dan, that, you know, a lot of people were probably very envious of. You know, I myself had my biological father and my stepfather, and, you know, when things got ugly with my biological father, and we don't really speak anymore, but I was lucky enough that I had a solid guy like my stepdad who was there, you know, like, I mean, he comes from a different generation. You know, we're in the generation, we're trying to really be conscious about this kind of stuff, whereas, you know, years ago, that really wasn't something that was thought of. So we're kind of like trailblazers, so to speak, in that aspect. But my stepdad was a great dude, and he was always there when I needed him, you know. That's actually his picture on the wall behind me. I stole that from my parents' basement. But
cool.
So why don't you guys give me an idea of, like, what was the motivation to start a show, to become content creators, you know? Because obviously it's very easy to just have good ideas in your head and just maybe talk to people in real life, but to go online and create a platform for that is a big step. And, you know, usually it takes some kind of motivation. Was there something that happened? Was there an event? Or was it just something that you guys, you know, got to talking about, and then next thing you know, boom?
Yeah,
I think literally that.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's weird that you say that. I mean, in terms of our situation, I mean, we tried something years ago, a business idea, and it didn't work. And we've always sort of regretted not sort of working harder at it. And I feel like as we grew up and done different things, that we become more aware of certain situations, and we understood how important it is to actually provide value for people. I think we didn't do that when we first started our business. It was more about us and how we're going to make money and how we're going to do this sort of thing. But this time round, we kind of reevaluated and we kind of looked at it and thought, you know, what's important at the moment for people, and how can we actually help people? And I think that's a big thing for me and Tao, is just, you know, what sort of legacy can we leave? How can we, like, help people in this modern day and age, and, like, really try to help and understand, like, men's mental health in general. But I mean, like, with the whole COVID situation as well, Steve, it was kind of like
complicating everything at the moment.
Yeah, and it kind of got us thinking, like, people aren't able to talk at the moment. So people that do have these issues, you know, kind of need like somewhere where they can go and speak about their problems and really hear from other people and connect and network with other people. So to create the platform that we have, it was kind of like, this is good timing for this sort of thing. So that's kind of where it stemmed from, to be honest with you, mate.
I think you guys actually have a great idea in the fact that you do it on Instagram Live as opposed to like a separate podcast platform or YouTube or something. So when people find you, they have you right there. Like, that's the whole thing. You don't have to go somewhere else. And I feel like that's a really smart, you know, approach to the whole thing. So
yeah,
I mean, to give you credit on that one.
Thank you for that. I mean, we have actually started a podcast on, I think it's on Spotify and Google. Was it Google Podcasts and all these other things? But we've got obviously the link to everything in our Instagram.
No, we're definitely we're gonna share that with this episode, of course.
We have, thank you, and we have we've got a YouTube page. I mean, we're finding it difficult to sort of work out how to do.
It's a lot of work,
aren't we, Daddy?
It's a lot of work.
We don't know anything about any of this stuff. Like, all this stuff that we put out, we've pretty much just learned how to do now, really, innit, Danny?
Yeah, and I think that's like quite a good point to make as well. Like, you literally, we yeah, like exactly what Talon said. We don't have any experience in like Instagram, YouTube, like becoming like influencers or creators or whatever you guys like to call it. We're just two ordinary guys that come up with an idea to help men during COVID-19 and thought, let's give it a go. And like how quick the page has grown, like people are like kind of really shocked about it.
No, I mean that's awesome.
Yeah.
You guys, for being 7 weeks you said, like you guys have really. It seemed like you've cultivated something here. I think that's awesome.
No, I appreciate it. And the thing is, the thing is we literally, and this is what we talk about sometimes in our podcast. If you haven't listened to it, I want to plug us right now.
Do it.
Go on
do it.
Spotify.
That's why you're here.
Just mental.tv. Like we're only literally like 2 episodes in, but we just talk about things that we've gone through, like real stuff that's more relevant to men in this day and age in 2020, because we feel like we had a conversation about this the other day, and we feel like some of the, I don't want to sort of, well, it doesn't really matter if we offend people, because this is what I believe, but
tell us how you feel.
I feel like some of these maybe mental health professionals, some counselors and things like that, the whole style of it is quite dated, and I think that's what turns a lot of young men off of speaking to counselors, because it's all very formal and it's all very sit down here, tell us your problems, and and then writing things. I don't know. It's we just want to create a new way of speaking about the topic. Do you know what I mean? And encourage people to just be a bit more open to it and have a cool conversation and make the mental health conversation cool, because it can be. And I feel like once you're aware of the things that are going on in your head, you can then look at, as me and Danny usually speak about, actionable steps, working on your mindset, working on personal development, which we've been doing for quite a while now. And that's a huge part of the sort of maybe solutions to squashing those mental health sort of issues,
Definitely. Well, that's a big thing. I mean, especially that's my approach here. Think about, when you've had a job, you guys sitting down, all the crew is sitting down for lunch or a coffee break or whatever, and everybody's talking, you're telling jokes, telling stories, making each other laugh. When you were younger, my parents did this, they won't let me leave, they give me a hard time. Or when you get a little older, my girlfriend, she, I don't know what to do with this girl. But it's just, you guys you're comfortable with the people you're sharing your stories, and there's kind of no pressure. So I wanted to take that environment, that whole setup, and I wanted to keep it the same but add more to it. So now we can talk about, I've been really struggling, I've been feeling alone lately, I don't know if anybody else has gone through that, or maybe I'm having a problem, I feel like I'm not doing the right thing with my wife, I don't know, I can't connect. It's just we can talk about our real issues, our real problems, without fear of judgment, without fear of getting made fun of. And that's the most important thing, being able to share those feelings and just kind of let those negative emotions out, so they're not just poisoning you over time and making you turn bitter and cold inside. You know what I mean?
100%.
I think that's a huge value for guys who maybe, like you said, don't want to go sit in that clinical, like formal environment of a real therapist.
Yeah, I feel like as well, like, just say for instance, even saying you've gone to see a counsellor, like people think, oh no, I don't want to tell anyone that.
Yeah, there's a stigma attached.
Go see some help. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to seem weak as a man to do that. So rather than just pushing that, sometimes it can be the worst thing to say to someone to go see some help, go get some help, blah 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 blah.
And people can take it as an insult.
Yeah, people can take it as an insult and clam up even more and not want to talk to anyone. So that's why we've created this platform, so people can see things and hear things and, have a little bit of confidence to just talk to their pals about it. Do you know what I mean? Or talk to...
Absolutely. That's not
necessarily jump online like we are, but talk to someone about.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. I started the same way. Listened to a podcast with 3 dads talking about raising their kids, raising their sons and daughters, and that made me feel like, oh, you know what? They're going through the same shit I am. Like, I'm not. That feeling of not being alone in your struggles or your issues. That feeling alone is a really powerful motivator. It's a thing that could really make you feel well, not alone, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
But
100%.
yeah, I lost my train of thought on that. So it happens. What are you gonna do? It's
all
Saturday.
Good.
You know, my brain's turning to mush a little bit now that I'm not working.
Yeah,
I'll be good again
it's
on
hard
Monday.
for everyone.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I'm still working during the week, but it's the weekend, so you know, I'm kind of letting everything just go.
Yeah, exactly.
So, were there certain issues that were near and dear to your heart as far as, you know, men's mental health? Like, was it specifically mental health, or are there other things? I know you guys have also talked about, you know, fitness and all these things, but what were the things that really motivated you two specifically? Was there something that was, you know, your passion, Danny?
For me, I think it was just like actually leaving like a legacy. I think that was something I've always like been ingrained into me since I was young. Like, you know, what stamp are you gonna have on the world? Like, what's your like focus? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna help people? So you know, it was always kind of just figuring that out as a kid in general. And I think as growing up, moving forward, you know, it just so happens that we've stumbled across this idea, and it just like me and Tao are both so passionate towards this. It's like we generally starting to see results, like seeing people like messaging us, like private messaging us, saying like, "Thank you so much for like all your help, guys. Like your page is really inspiring. Everything you talk about is great." And I think it's kind of that aspect of it, like actually providing value for people and helping people, like providing a service. I think that's what's so important.
That's big.
Yeah. I mean, to second what Danny just said, like I remember I had a conversation with this guy called Craig like a few weeks ago. Powerful conversation. He was actually one of our first guys we spoke to from the States. Was he from Michigan, isn't he?
Nah, he's from I don't know how you say this. I think I'm saying this wrong, but it's it's in Washington, Maryland.
Oh, Maryland.
Yeah. Maryland.
Okay,
that's
cool.
That's very cool.
You were right there. It's no big deal.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I spoke to him, and we had a proper good chat, man. And I was thinking, I've come out of the chat thinking to myself after, how on earth have I had this conversation and felt comfortable speaking to someone about these types of things when I haven't myself with anyone I know? And he lives across the world. I don't know who he is, but we had that sort of common ground, and it was just really, really powerful. He was telling me about his dad and things like that growing up, and he said he actually messaged us. Saying that his dad saw the conversation that we had, and rang him and said he was super proud of him, and he said he wants to be his first guest on whenever he decides to do a podcast.
Awesome.
and speak about certain things. So it was absolutely it was incredible. Like I got a mad feeling in my in the lump of my throat.
In case of the feels.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, this is what it's about. Like if we can do that for that guy, and it's made me feel good, and it's given him and his dad a better relationship, or a stepping stone in the right direction, then I actually, then that's when I thought, how many people can we actually reach and help with this? And it's going to be so amazing, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I was lucky enough to get my dad on the show one time. I mean, I had to fly to Florida to do it, but
oh wow.
So what I was saying before about me hearing another podcast before I started this, and that motivated me. Like, it's kind of the same thing you guys are talking about, like that idea of service. You know, what can we do to help other people? So for me, I felt like I was helped, and I was so inspired by these other guys. Shout out to Nick Rusher, shout out to Scuba Vel, my dudes at 36 Chambers of Fatherhood. I was motivated by them, and I was like, you know what? They're doing something positive. Even if they're just sharing their stories, I could do that too. Maybe I can help somebody. I mean, I don't want to rip off what they're doing. I would like to do something kind of in the same vein, but I got this. So it's, I like the idea of paying it forward, so to speak. Like I was
100%.
helped by them, so let me see how many people I can help now. It
Yeah,
seems like
yeah.
an effective way to affect
I feel
change
like-
in the world.
Yeah,
I
That's
feel
kind of
like
similar.
go on, Danny.
I think you're probably going to say the same thing as me, Tal. It's kind of similar to us in the aspect of like we've always been so big on like self-development, personal development, like guys like Gary Vee, like Jim Rohn, there's so many, isn't there, Tal, that we look at and kind of see what they're doing. You think, do you know what, they've actually helped me in my life. So it's like, if I can pay that forward, like what you said, if I can, help people who maybe haven't seen these guys, but do it in a different way where some people can kind of relate to, I guess, like the modern world and the way things are going with social media and things like that. Like in terms of our growing up, we've kind of grew up with it, and a lot of these big like self-development motivational guys, they kind of maybe haven't grown up with it so much that they kind of don't understand like the psychological side of it. Like when you see these guys that are like, I've got all these like fake Instagram accounts, like faking their lifestyles and things like that, and it can really like fuck with your mind basically. So it's good to kind of pay that forward and help people become more aware of that as well.
Definitely. It's easy to get a warped concept or warped perspective when you're looking at people who are standing in front of like a rented sports car thinking, oh, life is good, holding a stack of bills just because they work in the bank. They have to return it as soon as the picture's taken. And next thing you know, you're seeing it thinking, oh, this guy's living large. Meanwhile, he's still living in the same one-bedroom shack, around the corner. But that fake, perception, can change your mindset. Meanwhile, he's doing worse than you.
Exactly.
That's what we spoke about that actually earlier today. Like people always in this day and age, you can't get away from it. I've done it so many times where you've looked at Instagram and you've seen someone that you follow, and you see, oh, they're driving that car, they're on that, they're on those type of holidays, they're doing this, they're doing that, and then you kind of start comparing. Naturally, subconsciously, it just happens. If anyone who says he hasn't, they're lying, because that's just what that's just human nature, right?
Of course.
And then you look at yours and you're thinking, oh, okay. Oh, and then you start looking around and thinking, oh, I'm not really doing that. And sometimes if you haven't got things that we do, like personal development, which can sort of teach you to appreciate, for example, gratitude can teach you to appreciate what you have. If you haven't got that and you aren't aware of those type of things, you can easily get wrapped up in, like you said, a ball of thinking, oh, comparing my life to his. But for one, it's not fair on yourself or that other person, because even if that guy's life is real and you're comparing it to the end of their journey, you don't know all the shit that they've been through to get there.
Yes.
Or on the flip side, that whole life can be fake. That might just be fake. Do you know what I mean? It might be fake, and then you're comparing everything that you're at, your journey, where you are, to that stuff, and you're thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, and then now you're not talking about it, and you're not dealing with it. Now you start acting out on your family, now you start acting out on your girlfriend, and people are not knowing what's going on with you, and it all stems from that tiny little thing. It's crazy.
Yeah, that resentment could build up so fast over something 100%. That doesn't even really exist.
100%.
Exactly.
And you're never going to see this
point.
person. You're never going to see this person. You don't know who they are. They don't know you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might unfollow them in 6 months. You know what I mean? But now you're in this mind frame of, oh shit, now I've got to compare myself to him. And not actually living life for you. Living it for someone else,
Well, that's one of the big pitfalls of social media. In the past 10 years, we've seen a lot of kids, especially even growing up, looking at social media, seeing the very best, like curated something about someone else's life. You're judging your everyday based off their, glamour shots, essentially. And it messes with your mind, especially when you're not mentally developed enough to know, like, that's not real life, what I'm looking at. And it's a lot of people can really fall victim to that. And like you said, Tal, that that can build up resentment. So next thing you know, you're looking at your girlfriend like, how come you don't wear bikinis like that? Now you're mad. But it's just a bunch of fake shit, essentially, and it doesn't matter when you're comparing your life to everyone else. Like you said, you're not living your life. You're just looking at what everyone else is doing.
It's that like Danny always says. He taught me about this thing called herd mentality. Go on, Danny. I'll let you explain it, man.
Hit us.
So yeah, it's kind of like to be honest, I learned it from. I think it was probably Gary Vee, to be fair, because I'm big on Gary Vee. I listen to all his stuff. I'm really into him. And basically, he says about herd mentality, where it's kind of like you want to be accepted by the herd, so you do these things. Mm-hmm. So, for example, you'll make sure that your social media is like the best possible version of yourself, or if you're really fucked up, you'll just fake it to make it look as though it's that good, just because you want to be accepted by the people that are around you, or the people that you're actually consuming content from as well. So it's kind of like, what was it that Jim Carrey said, Tal, in that
it's your need for acceptance.
Yeah, that's it.
Can actually make you invisible.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You gotta deep that one. Like, your need for acceptance can make you invisible, because it just makes you one of the herd.
Become another face in the crowd.
100%.
You don't become your real self. You don't take risks. You're worried about taking risks or putting yourself out there, because you don't want to come across as like not part of it, or not like everybody else. So that's why there's only a few that do put themselves out there. Like, for example, content creators, people that actually put themselves out there and like are happy to just show their authentic self to the world, like compared to like the herd mentality, who will just put I don't know, like a glamour picture up of themselves, or them in front of like a flash car, for example, like trying to show off. Like, so there's so many people that are affected by that, and they go to jobs they hate on a day-to-day basis because they don't want to affect that whole system and that whole way of being,
Yeah, it's like a Fight Club line. People can spend their life going to jobs they hate so they can go buy shit they don't need.
Yeah,
exactly.
To impress people that don't care about them.
Yeah. Bang on. It's mad. Like, it's mad. Like, there's like a template. There's like a template. I feel like there's like a template where, like in the UK sometimes, where people, I could literally name you about 30 or 40 people I know who would, like, guys who would like just have a job in the city, they get a Mercedes, they go on a couple holidays a year, and it's just the same person but different. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
You're just like a cookie cutter version of the next guy.
Mate, listen, that's not a bad thing, right? If you actually like that shit. Like, if you actually like that and enjoy that and you love that life. But I know so many people who aren't happy with those types of lives, but, they just want to do this template. And then when they get to, 25, they get put down 25 to 30, put down a mortgage on a gaff. And then now you got kids. It's just this template of life that a lot of people aren't happy with. They're not made for it. They're not happy with, but they feel like that's the way to live life. Mm-hmm. So they go for these goals that aren't really their own goals,
Yeah, you guys you touched on two things that I really want to delve into. I want to take 1 second. I was going to make an adjustment to my air conditioner real quick so it's not buzzing in the microphone. I'll be right back, all right? All right, you guys weren't saying anything bad about me, were you? I have it all on video.
Just talking about your guitars, Steve. Tal's got a guitar as well.
Only one of those was ever actually played on a stage.
Man's got the acoustic.
Nice.
I mean, you want a bit of it, Enrique Iglesias, Hero. That's all I can do.
I used to do that when I had more hair, but not so much now. Now I tend to do the Chris Daughtry. And anyway, so you guys touched on something. You're talking about that whole cookie cutter lifestyle where you're doing these things because you think that's what's expected of you. That's the path to success. That's how you make it in life. You get this job, you buy the car, you find a wife, you have kids, and that's what life is supposed to be. But really, like you said, Tal, you're living your life by someone else's idea of what it's supposed to be, not your own. You're just doing what you think is expected of you. And a lot of guys fall for that. To say, well, listen, this is what I was told. You know, you got to go to college, you got to get a job, and then you got to get married and have kids. Otherwise, you're fucking up, essentially. And I feel like, yeah, maybe that worked, 50 years ago. Maybe that was the good plan. But we live in a very different world from our parents. So they were preparing us the best they could based off what they knew. But the information has changed now. So it's our responsibility to try to evolve and really delve into these things and say, hey, is this the right plan for me? It's so not a problem to break away from the herd. Like that's how you do something different. That's how you stand out and do something great.
Exactly.
Because if you're just doing what everyone else is doing, well, who gives a shit?
Exactly. That's so true.
One of the things I want to ask you particularly about that, since you guys are content creators yourself, how do you go about letting your authentic self, show? Do you guys just let it all hang out? Because I know for me personally, and this is something I'm actually battling with right now,
right.
It's not worth it to always worry about offending people or turning people off. Because I know for myself, my goal was to try to attract all different types of people, to try to get people from every different, aspect of life, every different walk of life, and appeal to everybody, because that's how we can kind of build unity. We can all come together and learn from one another. But the problem then is that you end up trying to please everybody, and you're really not committing to one thing, Like, how do you guys go about dealing with that? Sorry, let me turn this back on because now it's really hot.
That's really interesting, Steve, that you brought that up, because since we've started this page, me and Tao have had this discussion a lot, because there's certain issues we feel with men's mental health in general and the whole industry in general that we feel is affecting men's mental health, more really, and causing a problem, causing an actual problem with men's mental health. But we don't like to go too over the top on it, because we don't want to offend people that really do just mean well. Like, they're just generally trying to help people themselves, and it's like, I don't want to offend this guy because he's trying to do good. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a difficult one for us, but we are like completely authentic with what we do, and like we're as real as we can possibly be on our channel without overly offending, like, for example, like mental health professionals, for example. Like, it's difficult. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's hard, because you've got to have that balance of being yourself, being 100% authentic, but also, like you said, it's a difficult one, not turning off too many people. But I feel like as long as you're staying true to yourself and you believe everything you say wholeheartedly. If you actually, it's funny when you say you guys are content creators. I've never really thought about myself like that.
It's true.
It's kind of guessing. I'm like, okay,
I see you. Okay.
Yeah, but I believe the content that we put out is things that we actually believe. We're not putting out things that we think people will like. Like, there's a difference, because you can sometimes see people's pages and things like that who maybe just posting just generic stuff. Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely. And
we don't want to be one of those pages who just post generic quotes. Like, there's so many of those out there. We want people to look at our content and actually just think about the way they're thinking. That's the main thing, and just become aware and think, oh shit, okay, what if I practice a bit of gratitude? This guy practiced some gratitude. I did a video the other day and opened up a little bit about a situation where I was homeless. I was homeless after me and Danny started our little business thing. I went the completely other way, ended up spiraling out of control. A lot of other things were happening, and I ended up homeless. And I was in a terrible mindset, state of mind. And when you talk about depression, anxiety, and all of that stuff, I had all of that. I didn't know at the time, but I had all of that. And I started practicing gratitude. Yeah, I got out of it. I know it sounds simple, but literally, I practiced gratitude, and within a couple of months, I was out of that situation, and my life has never been the same since. And what we want to do is just be authentic in the stories that we tell and the people that we bring on, so that other people can just see that and be like, actually, you know what? Yeah, that's something I can really cling on to, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I know that you said that it sounds too simple, but I think most great ideas are simple. I think that's one of the things that might make an idea great.
It is. I think we overcomplicate a lot of things in life, you know, and it just comes down to basic, simple principles, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was like my first year of being married, you know, I was struggling. I had a lot of debt. I was still trying to figure out my place as a husband. And then at the same time, now having a son, like I was really, it's like, you know, when you slip on ice and like you try to catch yourself, but it doesn't really get you back up and you have to keep adjusting and you're doing like this crazy.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like I was doing. I couldn't get solid footing. And every time I felt like I was getting closer to standing upright, I was slipping in another way, you know, and I was trying to find that even keel. And like that was something, that was a time when I was really under a lot of stress. You know, I was, like I said, I was kind of buried in debt, and I just needed to figure out how to make it work, you know, how to get my mindset correct. And I'm not really big on like the whole idea of like, I know there's a lot of guys out there that are, you know, like mindset coaches and they do that kind of thing. That's not really my area, but it was simple how just kind of taking a breath and talking, not just bottling things up inside. It changed everything, especially with my relationship with my wife. You know, she's an amazing woman, and you know, any relationship, obviously, you're gonna have to, you know, to make adjustments. You know, no two people are exactly the same, so you need to find that, you know, sweet spot where you can make it work, where you guys can get on the same wavelength, and just taking the time to communicate and not be so guarded. You know, just trust her that I could tell her how I was really feeling and that I was feeling like I was under, you know, a million pounds of pressure. It helped her understand where I was coming from. And now we can both see, you know, the reason why we are the way we are and why we do the things we do every day. And, you know, lucky for me, my wife came up with a genius idea. She fixed a lot of those problems. And, you know, now I'm in a much better place. But I had to take that first step of understanding that, you know, maybe I was doing something wrong. Maybe something that I was doing could be the reason for those problems. And just that simple, that self-reflection, that self-examination can open the door to a lot of great opportunities and possibilities that you didn't necessarily see before.
100%.
Were you guys going to say something on that?
Yeah, I was going to touch on that as well. I think a lot of that, like what you mentioned there, is very true. It's like it sort of eats you up inside because you're not getting it out there and telling people, and you're not being your authentic self. Like the only way you can be your authentic self is just by laying it all out on the line and just being like, look, this is me, this is who I am, this is how I'm feeling. And if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you know, that's fine also, you know. I think that's kind of like the way you got to approach that, and that's definitely the way that I approach things now. I never used to, but it's definitely the way that I approach things now, in terms of, you know, you just gotta be your true self and just be honest with yourself and everyone around you. And then the ones that stick, the ones that don't, you know, they were never meant to be there in the first place.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. I agree with that completely as well, man. So no, it's 100%. You got to be honest with yourself first, and like you said, Danny, just get everything out there, and just look at the bullshit, that your own bullshit, you know. That's, you know what I'm saying. That
I gotta say,
hard.
That's a big one for men today. You know, examine your own bullshit.
It is hard. It is hard. Like I remember when I was in that situation where I was homeless. I was living in a hostel, right? Like I obviously I didn't have a proper home, but luckily I still had a job, and it was like a commission based.
Okay.
So yeah, so obviously if you don't make it, you get paid when you make a sale
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
Yep.
But I wasn't very good at the time. I wasn't very good at the time. So like there was no way I was getting myself out of this situation. But one guy who was like a mentor in this office that I worked in, who really liked me, and he taught me about the gratitude and that type of thing. He called me out in front of the whole office. And it was really, really ego bruising, you know, proper. I was so mad. And he just called me out on my bullshit, like everything about me. It was like, you're fake, mate. Like, you're saying this and you're doing this. Like, I've been watching you the last 2 months. You're just fake, mate. And I was like, it hurt me, but it's what I needed to hear to actually sit down and reflect. It caused me to reflect on myself. I'm not saying you got to say it like he said it to your friends and shit like that.
You don't have to be so brutal.
Yeah, but he knew that was the best way to say it to me, where I would listen. But yeah, you've got to sit down and analyze your own bullshit in order to be honest with yourself. Because once you're honest with yourself, you can be honest with other people. You know.
Definitely. Yeah, like we were saying, I think that being honest with yourself, especially for men, is hard because, you know, from a young age, we're all socialized to present that, you know, that front, just be strong, you know, to be solid for the people that need us, to be reliable. We can't waver in any way, otherwise we lose our value as men. And one of the big things is that, you know, don't admit you did something wrong. Don't admit that there's some kind of flaw, because then you just broke that whole facade. So a lot of guys don't do the work to better themselves and to examine what they might be doing wrong. And I think that as society, we've seen that, you know, that can cause a lot of problems. Is this something, I mean, I don't know, like the Me Too movement was very big and powerful here, at least in the US. Did it have the same kind of impact in the UK? Like as far as like, you know, men behaving badly, like is there a lot of calling out?
I heard a lot about it because my sisters are super, 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 super feminists. Like the most feminist you can get. Like they're just like that. So I do banter my little sister about things and just wind her up all the time, but and talk about a toxic femininity to her. But nah, I don't know. It wasn't really a massive thing, was it, here, Billy?
Mate, to be honest, no, not really. It wasn't. Like it didn't really have an impact here, as far as I was concerned. Anyway, I mean, it is definitely a big issue, though.
Maybe that's just like an American thing. Like, you know, some guys, some of us are just so like arrogant and loud and obnoxious that it. I mean, I hate to put that stereotype forward, but it kind of.
No, but do you know what it is? Like people are like that all over the world, right? I think it's just how people deal with it. British culture is very different to any other culture. We kind of sweep things under the rug over it, don't we, Danny? Like, I think you guys over there are very, very open about certain things, and like it comes down to, there's so many things like that are just, it's a different conversation. Like I don't want to get into it too much, but even when it comes down to racism, like it's completely different in the UK to America. Like the conversation
it's swept under the carpet. Yeah,
it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have with people here. Whereas in America, it's very, very different. Very, very different.
Yeah,
so
well, I mean, it's still uncomfortable here, but it's way more in your face every day.
Yeah, I mean, there's that stuff about what's his name?
George Floyd.
George, that's terrible. It's terrible, man. But I feel like we just, as people, just need to. I feel like as people, we need to just keep teaching our children how to love, and because I think that's what it comes down to. I feel like racism will be at some point eradicated. It might not be in my generation, I might not see it, but in the next 100 years, I don't think it will be there, because the world's not as it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. Like, it's changing very, very quickly. You look at young people these days, right? What's everyone into? Everyone's into rap music. Everyone's like, music is one thing that connects everyone, right? Yeah. Everyone loves rap music, you know, like loads of people in our age love rap music. UK rap's a big thing over here. Everyone loves Drake. Everyone loves Young Thug. Like those type of rappers, they're all black. it doesn't really matter anymore about race to the younger generation. It's just an older generation thing. And once we sort of wipe that out and teach all our children to love and care for each other, then I think you'll see like 100 years in, a completely different world,
Yeah, I mean, I go ahead, Danny.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think a big thing on that as well is like the actionable steps you can take, because so many guys like just completely disagree with like racism in general, of course, but there's only a select few that will actually take action and actually like stand up and say like, look, this is wrong. And that's a massive thing. And I think people need to get it in their heads that like when you have grandchildren, for example, they're going to be asking you like, what did you do during that time when that was happening?
Yes,
Absolutely. Where was you? And it's like, let's actually take accountability for it as well, and like really try and change it. And that will only happen if everybody's on board with that, and
Definitely.
like it becomes a big enough thing. So yeah.
Well, I think it's as like, again, as content creators, that the three of us, we're in a unique position where it's real easy for us to say, down with racism, that's wrong, to call out stuff on the internet. But for us, the actionable thing is the challenge, because we're actually in a position to, put our money where our mouth is, to actually do something. Whereas the average person, what are they going to do? They could vote, they could make a message, a post on Instagram and Facebook, but we have platforms, and I feel like it really is a responsibility that we have to call out this bad behavior in whatever form, whether it's racist, whether it's misogynist, whether it's whatever this it's toxic behavior in any form, and we'd be doing people a disservice by not being open and honest about that and just calling that bullshit out, which kind of goes back to what we were saying before, where you don't want to turn people off, you don't want to come off sounding like this is just some woke show where we talk about these kind of things and I'll just talk about our feelings, but you want to be real, like for instance, like I have on this show, I've had police officers, I've some people I love dearly are in law enforcement, and I respect them, and if I didn't think they were good people, I wouldn't ask them to come on the show. But it's easy to try to maybe shy away from sensitive topics, like we just talked about. We mentioned George Floyd. Like, that's a terrible thing that happened, and there needs to be accountability for that. It can't just be, all right, well, this guy got arrested, and then 8 months later when everything dies down, then the guy's going to get acquitted, and then people forget about it. Like, that's not good enough. Exactly. Like, there needs to be accountability for people that are doing the wrong thing, especially in law enforcement. And I really put it to the guys that I will defend, I say are good cops and good police. Like, I put it to them, like, this is your time to speak up. This is 100%. Your time to call this shit out, because this is going on too long and too often. And every day, every week, we're seeing these new videos of people being, beaten and murdered, like we just saw. And when is enough enough? I understand as police, these guys are in very, dangerous positions every day. It's they're in life-threatening positions even, and their fear of their life can be real and present. There's clear and present danger, all the time. But that doesn't give them the excuse to be cavalier with people's lives,
Of course, man.
Exactly.
So, and that's, I ask those guys that I love, and I think I will say this to my dying day, that there is some diehard, solid guys out there that are protecting us every single day. But this is the time to speak up, because
100%.
Silence is acceptance. Silence
100%.
is you're just letting this happen. You're not speaking out. You're not calling out this bad shit. If you don't say anything, your silence is betrayal. So, I mean, that's a little off topic from where we were, but
it's crazy.
It's true, man, because like I learned something. I used to be in a particular way, right? So I used to be not a yes person, but I'd always wanted to agree with people, right? Because I wanted people to like me, right?
Yes.
So if you said something that I didn't agree with, I wouldn't call you out on your bullshit, or I wouldn't say anything about it. And what I've realized is that means I still agree with you, essentially, because you could then go to someone and go, oh yeah, like fucking, I was talking to Talent the other day about this particular instance. Yeah, we was having a really good chat, and then suddenly now I'm
You're
involved
guilty by
with something.
association.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I feel like as people, as human beings, if we don't actually agree with something, we have to speak out.
Mm-hmm.
We have to just make sure that we call out the bullshit, man, because
it's back to what I said, man, about the herd mentality. Like people want other people to feel like they're the same. Do you know what I mean? They want to feel like part of the herd. They want to feel like I'm doing everything right. Look at my life. My life's perfect. Like I'm the perfect human. Basically, no one's perfect. Everyone's gonna have different opinions.
Yeah, but we want to avoid.
Exactly.
Sorry, I would say we want to avoid conflict. Right. Essentially, we don't want to fight every day. We don't want to argue every day. So sometimes we just like, I don't have the energy to deal with this guy today.
Yeah.
100%.
But that's something
100%.
I think as men particularly that we have to deal with because, we grow up and you see, I talked about this with a guest, Dr. John Schinner. Shout out to Dr. John. He's a really, really fucking smart guy. And it's like when you hear that guy, the loudmouth talking about the stuff that maybe we completely disagree with and we just like, yeah, okay, man. And we just we don't push back at all. It's because somewhere we don't want to be looked at like some guy say, I had this chick this weekend, bro. I fucked the shit out of this chick. She was such a slut. You're like, I want to be like, bro, all right, relax. Like you're trying too hard. But sometimes, we don't want to do that. We don't want to give that pushback because we don't want to we don't want to have the guy. Oh, what are you queer? Come on. Relax. we don't want to be seen as less than manly.
Makes sense.
So we learned at a very young age that if we push back on stuff like that, that makes us the outsider. That puts us outside of that man box. You know what I mean? And that affects every aspect of our life. Because if we don't push back, we just avoid conflict. We just show our belly every time someone pushes us. Then we live our life free of conflict. But we also aren't really living a life. We're not being true to ourselves, like we all said. We have to stand up at some point, and that's 9 times out of 10 is going to be really fucking uncomfortable. But we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the people that we care about to do exactly that.
Yeah, it comes down to your values, man. It comes down to figuring out your values, who you are, what you stand for, what you believe in. It doesn't have to be loads of different crazy things. You know what I mean? Just a couple of core values of who are you, what do you believe in, and then just making sure that you're consistent with that every day. And if you see something that you don't like or that goes against your values, then speak up about it.
Definitely,
100%.
So I know we're gonna change gears a little bit here. On your show,
can you bear with me just one moment? I just need the toilet. I've been needing.
Oh yeah, of course, bro.
I want to wet myself, mate.
No, we don't want that. Yeah, sorry, I've been on one a little bit today, just because watching the news and chatting with my wife.
Yeah.
I don't want to do this whole mealy mouth people pleaser thing anymore, and I want to just kind of speak the truth, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, it's so important. So important just to kind of just be yourself and just live life on your terms and how you want to move forward with things.
Yeah.
Because you could get to a certain, say you got to I don't know, 60, 70 years old, and you're looking back thinking I just weren't do you know what I mean? I didn't have a life. I didn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't try things. I didn't risk things as well.
Mm-hmm.
So many people won't take risks or try something that they really want to do because they're worried about how it will make them look if they fail.
Yes.
I think that's so important.
Yeah.
To get that across to people.
I had a time like that right around 2016. We had the big election here, as I'm sure you guys have heard about.
Yeah.
And the way some people made it sound was like this is going to be the next Hitler, and I'm thinking I don't want to be associated with that stuff. Like you said,
yeah.
When you look back at your life, when your grandkids ask you, like, hey, what were you doing when all this happened? I want to be able to tell them, I was fighting to do the right thing and be a good person. So I had it in my head, I needed to go on Facebook and correct people and argue with people all the time. And, that's really probably not the best approach to change hearts and minds, so to speak.
Yeah.
You really just end up angry all the time because you're just fighting with strangers on social media. So
Problem, yeah.
yeah, you have to.
That's what I mean. It's like a double-edged sword, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, you can, I don't know, you kind of die on your sword in a way if you're fighting a losing battle.
Yeah, well, that's the downside. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
You hear that from a lot of activists too. Like they tell you, it's tiring to be outraged all the time. If you could sit back and do nothing and just watch as terrible shit happens, or you could go out and fight and be exhausted and maybe not win also. So it's no matter what you do, there's going to be a downside. You just got to choose which upside are you more interested in going after.
Exactly. So
all right.
true.
So we were talking about shifting gears. I know you guys on some of your episodes have talked a lot about like physical fitness being tied in with mental health, that mind-body connection. And me and Tal talked a little bit about this. We messaged a bit back and forth. What's your approach? I know you guys, like you said, are into fitness. Like, how do you go about creating that mind-body connection, so to speak?
Yeah. Okay. So I think for me, it's about habits.
Okay. And
I mean, it's kind of like you can have daily habits, and your daily habits actually become who you are eventually. And there's I'm not sure who it was that actually said this. Actually, I wish I did know the name, but it takes 28 days to create a habit. So if you do something consistently for 28 days, after that 28 days, you don't even have to think about it anymore. You just naturally do it, and it's part of your daily routine. So in terms of creating habits as well, another difficult thing that people try to do when they try to change their lifestyle, change their health, is they'll try and do too many things at once. They'll be like, I'm going to eat healthy, I'm going to work out every day, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And it's just too overwhelming. So the way I kind of approach it, and Tao as well on our page, is that, look, let's solidify one habit. Let's do something for 28 days. Let's solidify it for 28 days. And then let's add different habits into our daily routine. So it's kind of like, let's not overwhelm ourselves. Like, if your ideal goal is to be like, fit, ripped, healthy, like in unbelievable shape, then let's start with a foundation. So let's do a daily workout, for example. Let's not worry about the food or the healthy food. Like, do that as much as you can, but let's focus just on the workouts for 28 days. Once that 28 days is done, then let's just focus solely on the healthy eating. And then before you know it, you're doing both, and you haven't even realized about the workouts because you're doing them anyway, because it's part of your daily routine and it's in your subconscious. So I feel like that's like maybe a different approach that we've kind of brought to this, because a lot of people just try to change everything.
That's brilliant. I like that, the 28 days approach, because eating healthy, changing your eating habits is a mountain to move. It's hard enough on its own without adding a workout regimen on top of it. So like that's smart. If it really works out that 28 days it just becomes second nature, then that's now that's set in there. That's one less thing to worry about. You're already doing it. Now we can add something else, because each of those is a heavy load to bear. Tal, what about you?
I feel like for me, it's quite weird, because I've always been quite a fit and active person. Like I said, I used to play. We used to play football all the time, like Danny as well. Like, I grew up playing football all the time, training like 2-3 times a week, doing a lot of sports at school as well. I was in like all the teams, and like it's just been a big part of my life. So I feel like that sort of habit's been there. What I've learned to sort of connect the mind to it is my morning ritual, and the gratitude thing. Like I said, it's just been a game changer for me. So when I wake up in the morning, I always know that the best thing to do to make yourself feel good is do something to release endorphins, right?
Okay.
It's these hormones that just make you feel unreal. And so do a workout in the morning or do a run. When I was living by the beach, what I would do is get up every day and go watch the sunrise. Honestly, it's just getting up a little bit earlier, check what time the sun rises. If it's at 4:45 in the morning, wake up at 4:45, just go run to where you can see the sunrise and just sit there and think, mate. And honestly, if you've never done it before, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. And you start thinking, why the fuck have I never done this before? It's just so good because you're just alone with nature, with the most beautiful thing that you can see happening, like the sun just coming over the horizon, and then it comes up, and then you just run back, and you just, I can't. It's almost euphoric, the feeling.
No, I know you're right. You're onto something there because I know exactly what you're talking about.
The feeling it's almost like, I know people describe different things like you're being on drugs or whatever, but the feeling is just when you watch the sunrise after like you've just gone on a run and you run back home, even if it's just 20 minutes, and you're just feeling good, your body's pumped, you know, your blood's flowing around your body, then you go, okay, cool, I'm ready for the day. Then you go do your whatever morning ritual is, you get in a shower, so that's how I create my mind and sort of connect my mind and body. You do something that releases the endorphins, workout, run, whatever, and then do some sort of mind training in the morning. So for me, write down 5 things that I'm really grateful for and really get myself, I write down, for example, one thing I always write down is my nephew, right? I've got 2 nephews, they're like 4 and 5. I just literally write down, I'm so grateful for having Leon and Caden in my life, close my eyes and just repeat it to myself, and I can just imagine them doing their own little funny things, and I just get so happy. Like you literally just can't stop smiling. And then I imagine my life without them, how I would feel, and then I get even more grateful for them, and then I move on to the next one and just do 5 of those, and then I'm good for the day. Like I'm sweet. Like
makes you feel good.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unreal.
Well, doing that in the morning, that's, you know, that sets the tone for the rest of the day, and
100%.
to set that tone, I mean, what could go wrong with that? I really don't see a downside to it.
I feel like if I don't do that as well, like I literally feel myself like not being able to get out of bed. Like if I don't get out of bed instantly and do that, then I know I'm just gonna have a lazy day automatically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. You know, some things, like some people, we just need to keep up a daily maintenance on something. Like for instance, like you said, you need to wake up and remind yourself what you're grateful for. Like for me, like for a fitness thing, you know, maybe every day I get a run, otherwise the weight comes on too fast. It's like you can't just let those things slide, because that can be a real slippery slope. You know, it's easy to sink back into a depression, you know, so we do what we got to do every day, you know, wake up, set that routine. Like you said, we
100%.
build that.
So
start with 28 days. Next thing you know, maybe 28 years passes, and you maintain that same thing. So, you know, I appreciate you guys being so generous with your time here. I want to move on to the last segment of the show so we can end up. I know we do this thing called Humble Pie, where we talk about an experience in our life that was embarrassing or humbling, because we all need to be humble sometimes. Sometimes it takes hearing, you know, or sharing an embarrassing story. We learn, hey, you know what? This shit happens to everyone. So I'm going to tell one. This is a little more lighthearted, a little more, you know, silly. So I don't know about you guys. I don't know how you are with substances, as far as, you know, weed or alcohol or anything. I was never really a big pothead in my day. I have smoked weed a handful of times, but the very first time that I smoked weed, I went to visit a friend of mine. He was in college or at university, and you know, he was, at the time they were smoking a lot of weed there. In that particular dorm, that was a very common thing. So he's like, "Oh, you never smoked yet? Like, come on, we're gonna go smoke." So we go to his you know, these kids that lived across the hall. I wouldn't say roommates, but so they were like, "Yeah, come on, we get, you know, we're about to spark up." So they had a bong. He's like, "Oh, you know how to use this?" I said, "No, not really." So the kid was explaining to me the physics of how it works. You know, you hold the thing in there, and you know, you suck in, and he says to me, he goes, "Whatever you do, don't blow out, you know, unless you do something." You know, I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I had it in my head to blow out, and I don't know why. And I knew that he said don't do it. So, you know, I took a big hit, and then I was like, "Oh, I wonder what actually happens if I do blow out." And I blew out, and next thing you know, this bong water, it kind of exploded all over this poor kid's room, all over his computer
Jesus.
and stuff. And it was like 4 of the people there that I didn't know. They were kind of like, all right, who brought the asshole? You know, and the guy's like, I just said don't do that. And I was like, yeah, I know you did. I guess I was just kind of curious. I'm sorry. I just remember being so ashamed. And then I started getting high and I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, what an idiot. And it just kind of ruined my whole night. So, yeah, don't blow into a bong for anybody out there.
No taken.
Yeah, I really felt like a horse's patoot, you know what I mean? So, in front of, and one of them was a girl, and I was single at the time, and I was like, well, there goes that chance.
No,
yeah.
Fucked it, really, didn't you?
That's my humble pie.
Nice. I suppose I'll go.
You go because I've got to think of one.
I've got so many.
I had to write a list. I had to write a list when it was fresh in my mind, just so I didn't, because that's what happens. You get put on the spot and like, oh, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, I'm sure you didn't do anything embarrassing in your life,
I've done so. Listen, my especially my late teens to, well, even now, but late teens to like maybe 22, just filled with so much stuff. So, I couldn't ever really handle alcohol like properly, right? I always used to just drink way, way, way too much. Like I thought I was fine, and then I wasn't. So basically, we went to, we met up with my pals, and I think I've just newly single, right? And obviously, through my sort of mid to late teens, I was in a relationship for about 3-4 years. So newly single. I'm out now. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm about where the girls at, all of this, all of that. So we go out, we'd start drinking, and I think I downed like a half a litre bottle of whiskey, right?
Ooh.
And I thought, yeah, sweet, I'm fine. Like, do you know what I mean? No problem. So we're on the way to this event in an area called Chelmsford, which is like half an hour away. By the time we get to Chelmsford, my head is literally just, I can't see anything.
You got like Mardi Gras head.
I can't see anything. Everything's so wavy. And then I can't remember what happened on the way there, in the club. We come out and then we sort of headed back to this Rayleigh area, which is where everyone was sort of based. And I got in a fight with my friend because obviously I'd said some things to him. And he had me around the neck, basically, at a garage station. Had his hands around my throat. So I went in the shop and bought him sort of like a bouquet of flowers to apologise. And then we got back in the car, went to this other bar, got in this bar, and I was wearing I remember I was wearing like all black, and I was wearing this camel jacket. It was quite expensive as well. I think it was like a Reese jacket. It was a couple £100, yeah. Anyway, so I'm in the toilet taking a piss. I'm literally leaking, but I'm so drunk. And then this guy comes in, boots the door down. Obviously, he thinks I'm doing drugs in the cubicle. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, mate, I'm mid piss. I'm turning around. Obviously, I've got my Corey in my hand, pissing still. And he's like, oh, you're doing drugs, this and that. He thinks obviously he's caught other people doing drugs in the toilet. I'm like, mate, I'm definitely not. Obviously, I'm a small guy anyway. Little man syndrome kicks in. I start trying to fight the bouncer. He literally picks me up, and like my legs are flaying everywhere, arms are waving. He drags me through the club. Everyone can see me. So they kick me out of the club, and then I'm thinking, okay, cool. So how am I going to get back in? So I walk around, and then there's like a little bit where you can climb up. I climb up to the roof of this other shop, which is like next to the club. I take my jacket off, thinking they won't notice me. Right? And it's like the back entrance.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Mate, it seemed like such a good idea. I thought I was James Bond, like proper, like. And then you could see people in the smokers section. They're like, "Tell them what you're doing." I'm like, "Shh." And then this guy opens the door, and he's like, "Oh, are you trying to get in the club?" I'm like, "Yeah, mate." He's like, "Yeah, come here. I'll help you out." I'm thinking, yes, it's a sick idea. I've got back in, no problem.
Oh, nice guy, man.
It's
nice
obvious,
guy.
Yeah. Obviously, it's the bouncer that kicked me out in the first place. So, yeah, I get kicked out again, and then now I start trying to fight the guy. And these are big guys, like 6'5", huge guys. I'm only like 5'7". and then I swung for the guy. I tried to swing for him. I'm not even a violent drunk. This is not what I do at all. Like, swung for him, missed him, and then end up hitting my head on the wall, knock myself out, end up in the hospital.
Oh my God.
With a concussion the next day.
Wow.
Yeah, and then basically I looked on my Twitter as well, and I was tweeting something like, "The bouncers at Lynx have assaulted me. I'm pressing charges." I woke up the next day, like, because I know one of the bouncers. I woke up the next day and they were like, "Mate, are you all right?" I've never been there again. Never been there since.
Oh my God, that was a great story. I mean, there was so many points in that story where you could have ended it. It would have been great, and it kept going.
Yeah, no, it just got worse and worse. I've never been there since.
I think we've all had nights like that. I commend you for sharing that story, man.
That's all right, mate. That's all right, mate.
There's definitely plenty more where that came from as well.
PC Callum.
For me, mate, to be honest, like, embarrassing stories, I found it difficult racking my brains. The only thing I can think of is back when we used to have to do like an initiation for football. So I joined a new football team.
Okay.
And I had to do an initiation, which basically they get you to stand on a chair and sing a song. And like, my voice isn't great. And,
well, you got to tell us, what do they make you sing?
Well, I went for "I Believe I Can Fly" by So I did that, but the funny thing is, as I was singing, someone actually come behind the chair and basically pulled my shorts down. So I was literally start bollock naked in the middle of a changing room singing "I Believe I Can Fly" by R. Kelly. So that's probably mine.
If you had actually started peeing on somebody while you were singing it, that would have been highly appropriate for for an R. Kelly song.
That would have exactly that.
Oh man,
that was a good one. I could see that being a little embarrassing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this and for sharing those stories. You know, I know sometimes it's a little uncomfortable, but those are the things I think that people really find value in. Is, and hey, like we said, this shit happens to all of us.
It does, man.
Nobody's immune
100%.
from being a little embarrassed once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go, do you want to give a little plug for the show? Like tell the people where they can find you so they could check you out.
Go on, Sal, you're the best at this.
Yeah, so listen, find us on YouTube. It's just mentalk.tv. Instagram as well, which is our main platform. We're doing really, really cool things there. We've got live sessions with some professional experts and, giving their tips on how to, just tips on basically mental health and, health tips, business tips, loads of different stuff. We've also got a new podcast out as well. We're 2 episodes in. It's on Spotify, Google Playlist, Google Podcasts, and that's pretty much it at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you're interested in generally improving your mindset and listening to other people's inspiring stories and on what they've been through and how they've got over it, and just getting some sort of actionable tips in terms of how to move forward, then check our page out. But
mentalk.tv.
mentalk.tv. Make sure you guys check it out.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Really appreciate it, man.
Hey, listen, this is my pleasure. I enjoy talking to you guys, and I hope we could do it again sometime.
Definitely
100%.
We will do. Listen, have a good evening, and take care of your family as well. Hopefully they're nice and healthy and safe during these times.
We're trying here.
Yeah.
Hey, so there it is. That was my talk with Talent and Danny, the 2 hosts of mentalk.tv. Big shout out to them for taking the time to talk. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you guys could learn something from it. A side note, I think from here on out, I'm going to practice a little something that we were talking about in this episode and just kind of be a little more true to myself. And, I don't want to worry so much about who we're offending, because I know that the goal of this whole show is to try to reach out to as many different types of people as possible. The problem I find is that, if you're just trying to please everybody, you're really not going to make anyone especially happy. So, I'm just going to, maybe a few things that I would have shied away from in the past as far as topics and my opinions that I kept to myself. I think I'm just going to let those fly from now on and let the chips fall where they may. Hopefully it makes a better show. But at least this way I know I'll be being true to myself. So for anybody that's been listening, rocking with us for a while, I say thank you, and hopefully you guys can appreciate where this ends up. And if you don't, well, too bad. There wasn't that many of you to begin with. So, all right, guys. As always, you know where to find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, anywhere you get your podcast. You can find our audio versions there. And please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where you can find the full video. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram through DM at APodAmongstMen, or an email at APodAmongstMen@gmail.com. If you have long form questions, whatever. But yeah, that's it, man. Make sure you follow Talent and Danny. Make sure you follow their show, at mentalk.tv on IG, and watch their stuff. I think those guys are on to something. So thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.